What's up, everybody? Welcome to the podcast. Now, I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about how Spider-Man Miles Morales just keeps on selling. So we've actually talked about this a couple times before, and I think this is one of the most unique, different kind of situations that we've seen with games. And I kind of want to just give this game praise, kind of talk about the situation going on with it, with the sales, because, again, like, there's games that have done what Miles Morales is doing currently is very, very few. In fact, one of the only ones you could say even closely replicates it would maybe be Spider-Man PS4. Now, that one, even that one, is very different because that game sold insanely well right out of the gate, right? It sold, I believe, like 3.3 million units just in that September period it came out, and then it just kept going. And I've talked about it before. I guess it can happen, obviously, with different kinds of games, but you see it sometimes with these Sony-specific games. They do sell well after the fact. They don't do all of their sales, week one, month one, which is pretty different because some games can start out very, very strong, and then they can completely die off. And I'm not saying it's an exclusive Sony thing. In fact, some Sony games, Death Stranding is an example, that game sold very well early on, and then it completely died after, like, the first month. So it can go, obviously in reverse, too. But you're seeing with Spider-Man and now with Miles Morales something completely different, something at a whole nother level than what a Horizon or even The Last of Us. Last of Us is kind of doing it right now. Ghost of Tsushima, Uncharted. Miles is doing something very, very special. So I kind of want to talk about that. Now, really quickly before I get too far in, make sure, as always, if you guys are new here, you're subscribed, get the bell icon turned on, and we are so close, under 50 people away from hitting 2,000 followers over on Twitter. So if you haven't followed me yet, and you do have a Twitter, my Twitter username is podcastnow15. Okay, the link for that is in the description below. Would love to have you guys over there. Now, this idea of mine was sparked by the recent sales figures of this game. So over this last week, this game took the charts, #1 in the UK charts, in terms of sales, and it beat some pretty good, some pretty high other games. And 90% of the sales of Miles Morales was on the PS5, and that's a thing. I gotta admit, guys, and I have no problem saying this. You guys were absolutely right. When this game first came out, it did not sell well. It did. I mean, okay, well, I should probably self-correct because people are going to get mad. It did sell well for a Spider-Man game, and you could maybe even argue for a PlayStation exclusive to the level of Spider-Man. It didn't sell well. And a lot of people had told me back then, because I made a video on it, and I did say I do think this game is going to grow, but I didn't know how much it would grow. Obviously, it's grown, quite a lot. A lot of people had said back then, even just in my comments, they said they think a lot of people are waiting for the PS5 to get this game, which is kind of interesting because, well, let me say, brutally honest, this is not, in my opinion, the game that I would get a PS5 for, considering it's also on PS4. I mean, I think Demon's Souls pushes the new console 10 times, maybe more, than Spider-Man Miles Morales does, okay? Now, again, that's not a hit piece on Miles Morales. It's just kind of funny that that's right. Like, the opinion of, when people were telling me that, and you can obviously tell based off these sales, it seems like people only want to play this game on PS5, which, again, is kind of interesting because there are definitely improvements, and I couldn't imagine playing Miles on the PS4 after platinuming it on the PS5, okay? I couldn't imagine doing it, but if you've never done the PS5 and you play the PS4, I think you're getting a pretty fine game. You know what I mean? I don't think you necessarily need to do the PS5. So that whole thing is interesting just in and of itself. But man, oh man, 90% of the PS5. So people truly are waiting for the PS5, for them to get the PS5, to get Miles. And Miles seems to be that game that everybody who gets the PS... Now, I guess not everybody, but, if you get a PS5, then you say, what's the game you're going to get for it? It's Miles. Now, that's... And by the way, this was all kind of predicted. Like, we could all have assumed that Miles was absolutely going to outsell Demon's Souls, okay? I love Demon's Souls. I think there's a very passionate... obviously the Souls community, Soulsborne community is absolutely massive and really passionate. But, the group of people that would buy Miles is definitely outnumbers them. So, again, it's not something that that's, like, surprising that Miles is a more, like, a sought-after game on PS5 versus Demon's Souls. Again, it's just kind of like which game actually pushes the console more. It's actually Astro's Playroom. It's Demon's Souls. It's stuff like that, and not Miles. But, this is a game that's going to keep selling. And now you're starting to see people saying, like, hey, can this game sell 15, 20 million units? Now, I don't know. Okay, so Spider-Man, the rumor is it sold over 20 million, units. the last time we heard about this game, I don't remember the exact number, but it was like 3 or 4 million. So it is growing. It is growing consistently. Again, we can't make exact numbers, but say 2 out of every 3 people that get a PS5, say they buy this game. I mean, this thing can keep selling very quickly and like a high amount over time. So, you know, back when the game came out and it sold what, like 400,000 units, and again, that wasn't really perceived as being all that much of a good thing. People were saying, and even myself, like, could it sell 4 or 5? I think that was kind of the number I thought. Like, could it hit 4 or 5? I think it could, but that would be like a quarter, or maybe if it even hits 10, that would be, you know, a quarter to a half of what Spider-Man did, which is, by the way, completely fine for a $50 game and for a game that is, you know, literally a glorified DLC. Now, obviously, it's not DLC; it's a bigger game than that. But you know what I mean? Like, you know, maybe the conception of it started in that way. So, like, that's actually amazing for a game like that. Again, like an Uncharted: The Lost Legacy. If you said that game sold half of Uncharted, that would, or Uncharted 4, I guess specifically, that would be, I would say, perceived as being extremely, extremely good, because, you know, it's not a game that is the main thing. You expect Spider-Man 2 to outsell, you know, Miles Morales. I mean, that's what I think everybody would probably think, and I get that it actually got people maybe slightly worried. I know we talked about, you know, does this hurt the idea of having more spin-off games? Does this hurt the idea of having, you know, just, or maybe does this hurt Spider-Man 2 in the end? Really, honestly, all that stuff was put to bed. It was really, it was me jumping the gun. It was a lot of other people jumping the gun, and it's actually cool to correct ourselves and to be wrong in this way, right? Again, I never thought this game was going to be absolutely awful in terms of sales, but I just didn't think it would have the legs that it does right now. And that's, again, the straight up fact really does seem to be, as the PS5 sells, Spider-Man will sell. I wouldn't be surprised. Let me say a bold prediction. Horizon Forbidden West is supposed to release this year, but obviously it's not 100% set in stone, right? Obviously, with the stuff around the world. If Horizon doesn't come out in the fall, I would, you know, under normal circumstances, PlayStation would actually be in quite some trouble, because you have Microsoft, say they try and get, you know, Starfield out there, say they try and get Halo Infinite out there. I mean, you could have at least 1, but if not 2 enormous games that are exclusive to Xbox, and literally PlayStation would have nothing. Ghostwire Tokyo, I guess, okay? But, I mean, okay, in reality, they'd have nothing. So I would be, you know, concerned about their Black Friday, about their holiday selling period for their console. But in reality, again, as the PlayStation sells, Miles Morales sells. I wouldn't be surprised if that game, even if Horizon does come out, if Miles isn't, like, reasonably close to the sales of Horizon, because I could see this game continuing to sell throughout this entire year into Black Friday, because tragic, the tragic, I guess, state of the world and the state of PlayStation is that it's very likely that still people won't be able to get this thing normally, like where it's just in shelves when you go into stores. You know, it's just like common to buy this, instead of obviously you have to wait into a queue and just be lucky. People may still be doing that, you know, in around Christmas time, and again, I think that's going to lead to more units of Miles Morales being sold. So it really is special. It's really cool. Again, you know, games like The Last of Us Part 2 is doing this right now. I mean, this Last of Us Part 2 is still selling. Okay, every month it's still doing well. Uncharted, I know that sold pretty well after the fact. God of War sold well after the fact. Spider-Man is probably the best scenario of selling really good upfront and then just literally not stopping and just constantly selling. So that's what you would hope that any of your games would replicate, but in reality, you know that next to none will. Miles is literally doing it. Maybe to a slightly smaller scale, especially because it started with, like, what, 10% of the sales that Spider-Man sold. But over time, as more people get the PS5, this game could get very... I don't think it'll beat Spider-Man in terms of sales, but I do think it'll get maybe closer than a lot of us thought. So let me know, guys, in the comments below, what do you think? Have you bought this game yet? Are you personally waiting for the PS5? Let me know in the comments. As always, make sure you guys are subscribed, the bell icon turned on so you know all these videos go up. Again, if you haven't followed me over on Twitter, PodcastNow15 is my Twitter handle. Link for that is in the description below. Or, of course, you can obviously just look me up over on Twitter. Thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I hope to see you all on the next video.